Welcome to the Dark Archive. I'm Mr. Nobody, and today we're going to talk about the haunted case of the SMURL family, a house taken over by demonic forces that not even the greatest occult experts have been able to fully explain. It all started in 1974, when Jack and Janet SMURL, along with their daughters and Jack's parents, moved into a two-story house in West Pittston, Pennsylvania. It was an old house, built before the 1900s, that needed a lot of work. But for the SMURLs, it was the perfect new start after a difficult time, including family losses and financial problems. They spent the first few months painting, fixing up the plumbing, and refurbishing the furniture. But as the family restored the space, something dark seemed to awaken within those walls. The first sign was a horrible smell of rotting flesh that would appear out of nowhere and disappear in seconds. Then came the sounds, banging on the walls, footsteps in the attic, and scratching, even when everyone was awake and quiet. The SMURLs tried to ignore it, but gradually, what was strange began to become impossible to explain. The family reports that the furniture began to move on its own. Pictures were falling from the walls for no apparent reason, and the family dog would howl into space as if he were seeing something, or someone. The TV would turn on and off by itself, and lights would flicker frantically in the early hours of the morning. Janet claimed to feel invisible hands touching her shoulder while she was washing dishes. Jack, on the other hand, began to have constant nightmares about demonic-looking figures. But the most disturbing thing was his daughter's behavior. They began to wake up screaming, saying that there was a lady on the other side of the mirror, and that a shadow was watching them while they slept. Even Jack's elderly parents began to report encounters with invisible presences. The atmosphere in the house became so heavy that the simple act of breathing seemed difficult. What the SMURLs didn't know yet was that this was only the beginning of the nightmare. In the early 1980s, paranormal activity gained momentum. Jack would wake up in the middle of the night feeling like he was being suffocated. Janet began to hear voices telling her to kill herself. The couple began to argue constantly, as if something was manipulating their thoughts. They isolated one of the rooms in the house, which seemed to be the epicenter of the activity, but even so, the mysterious force continued to spread. In one of the most macabre episodes, the youngest daughter was found paralyzed in her room, with scratches on her back and wide eyes, as if she had seen her own death. Fear took hold of everyone. No place was safe, not even during the day. The house seemed alive, but not in a natural way. It fed on the suffering of its residents, growing with every fight, every tear, every scream. With no alternative, the SMURLs sought help from the Catholic Church. A local priest came to the house, blessed the rooms, and said prayers. But according to the priest himself, as soon as he began to pray, the walls began to shake and a crucifix fell from its support. He left the house shaken and never returned. It was then that the SMURLs decided to seek out America's most renowned experts on paranormal phenomena, Ed and Lorraine Warren. The Warrens had already investigated the Amityville case and several other supernatural events. When they arrived at the house, Lorraine immediately felt a dark presence, while Ed claimed that the spiritual atmosphere there was like a war zone. During one of the visits, Lorraine claimed to have seen a 7-foot-tall creature with wrinkled skin and flaming eyes, standing in the corner of the basement, watching everyone in silence. The investigation would reveal something even more terrifying, for supernatural entities inhabited the house, and one of them, according to the Warrens, was of demonic origin. The Warrens documented several phenomena: levitation of objects, noises of disembodied voices, knocks on 3, considered mockery of the Holy Trinity, and even Jack's partial possession. In one of the most frightening moments, Jack was attacked by a female entity that pinned him to the bed and sexually abused him. The episode left the man emotionally destroyed and physically scarred. Janet also suffered. She was constantly pushed by invisible forces, attacked with scratches, and woke up with bruises she could not explain. The girls became increasingly withdrawn, talking to invisible friends and avoiding being alone. Even after exorcisms were performed with the Warrens present, the activity continued. Ed Warren said that this was one of the most difficult cases he had ever faced. 4 demonologists, The house had become a nest of evil energy, fueled by the family's suffering and fear. The media coverage of the case increased the tension even more. The SMURLs participated in interviews, and the story was on the front pages of newspapers and television programs. The house became an attraction for curious people, but this only made things worse. Janet reported that the more people mocked or doubted, the more violent the entities became. The family began to live as hostages, managed to sell the house, unable to sleep and without real support from the religious authorities. A bishop of the Catholic Church authorized a formal exorcism in 1986, which was performed by 3 priests, using ancient and powerful rituals. During the ritual, the entire house shook as if it were going to collapse. The priests said they heard voices cursing them, and objects flew toward the improvised altar. The event was recorded in writing, but never released to the public. And even after the exorcism, the house remained unchanged. The SMURLs' routine became a living hell. They began recording part of the events, in an attempt to document what they were experiencing. In one of these recordings, it is possible to hear a guttural voice saying Janet's name. In another, loud footsteps are captured upstairs, when everyone was downstairs. The recordings, although not conclusive, added to the consistent reports from neighbors and friends. Some said they saw strange lights coming out of the windows of the house during the night. Others heard muffled screams when no one was home.
Statement to the Times Leader, a local Wilkes-Barre newspaper, Warren bluntly declared, quote, "The ghost, devil, demon, or whatever you call it, is in that home."
It's very powerful. It's invisible. I don't care if you want to call it a devil or a ghost or a demon. There's something in this home which has the intelligence to inflict physical and psychological harm upon this family.
There were even reports of neighbors who saw shadows moving along the exterior walls of the house. One of them, when knocking on the door to help, was thrown backwards by an invisible force as soon as he touched the doorknob. The terror was no longer confined to the SMURLs. It was beginning to spread. In 1989, after almost 15 years of torment, the family was finally able to move. They moved to a new address in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, and to everyone's surprise, the phenomena stopped immediately. No manifestations, no noise, no attacks. The peace they had been searching for seemed to have finally arrived. But the original house was scarred. Even years later, local residents avoided walking past the place at night. The new resident claimed to have never experienced any type of phenomenon, which raised even more questions. Were the entities connected to the house, or to the SMURL family? Or, having finally fed completely on the family's fear, did they simply disappear? Lorraine Warren stated that she believed that demons had been defeated, but she also admitted they can always come back. The SMURL case became a landmark in the history of the American supernatural. It was studied by university researchers, was the subject of books, and even inspired a film. To this day, it divides opinions. For some, it is one of the greatest paranormal frauds in history. For others, it is real proof that evil exists and can live next door. What is most impressive is not only the number of phenomena, but the consistency of the reports, the seriousness with which they were treated by the Warrens, and the fact that all members of the family, even the most skeptical, had similar experiences. The terror experienced by the SMURLs seems to have left a mark that goes far beyond the walls of the house. A mark that remains alive whenever someone decides to investigate the secrets of darkness. What do you think? Do you believe that a house can be the stage for invisible forces capable of manipulating reality? Or was it all the result of years of stress, trauma, and religious influence? Leave your opinion in the comments. And if you like dark stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to the Archive of the Unknown, activate the bell, and share this video with those who love the inexplicable. Until next time, and remember, not everything you don't see is absent.
Chase Street and relocated back to Wilkes-Barre, hoping for a respite from the relentless supernatural torment. Interestingly, the occupants who moved into the duplex after the SMURL's departure reported no unusual occurrences during their stay. Deborah Owens, who moved in during February 1988, stated that she had never experienced any paranormal activity while living in the duplex, a sentiment echoed by a man who resided on the other side of the house. It is speculated that the new residents may have been spared from harm because the malevolent spirits followed the SMURLs to their new home. The family continued to grapple with supernatural troubles until a church-sanctioned exorcism performed in 1989 finally liberated them from their years-long persecution, bringing an end to their haunting ordeal.